I got a quote for you. And welcome, everybody. This is Resolve to Live Forward. I'm John Morrow. Thanks for joining me. It's Friday. Wow, let's think for just a second. Do you realize that 1 week from today will be the last Friday of the month of July? And this is actually episode 17 in this series of podcast episodes that I've been doing as we talk about the idea of living forward and what that looks like, living forward being a choice. But let me read this quote for you very quickly before we are, not very quickly, but let me just read this quote as we begin this session together. And by the way, thank you for joining me. A little bit more about that in just a moment. Listen very carefully. Here's a quote for you. Every sunrise is God's reminder that your story still has another page to write. I'll repeat that. Every sunrise is God's reminder to you, to me, to all of us, that our story still has another page to be written. I have said in past occasions on this podcast and in other settings that it would be very easy in light of a devastating moment, a truly traumatic, cathartic moment, where you would say, that's it. I don't really see any good, reasonable, even hopeful and meaningful way to continue to live forward. My life, as it stands, is done. The thing that mattered the most to me is gone. What's the use? I've talked about the Shawshank Redemption and so many incredibly rich, vivid details that are woven into that incredible screenplay and an even more incredible motion picture once you truly analyze it, looking at it not just with your eyes and listening to it with your ears, but really letting your heart, your very soul, take in the story and the deeper meaning. Because a lot of things, they're put out there in front of you and they're said, and you say to yourself, yes, I get that. But there are other types of things that take place in our life that our soul, our inner self, that deeper, more, for want of a better term, spirit in us feels a sense of communication and connectivity. And a line that Andy said, of course, when Red once again scolded him, I remember him shaking that spoon at Andy in the cafeteria and saying, hope's a dangerous thing. It'll drive a man crazy. Later, of course, Andy would write to Red and he would say, hope is actually a good thing, perhaps the best thing. And no good thing ever dies. But in that particular situation, Andy says, yeah, you're probably right. I guess it comes down to this: get busy living or get busy dying. There you go. There's the phrase, the period at the end of the sentence. Is that the end? Because just below it, you could write the letters THE space END, the end. Every sunrise is God's reminder that your story still has another page to write. I will tell you that Resolve to Live Forward, the podcast, is brought to you on multiple podcast platforms through the services of a podcast hosting site, Buzzsprout. I also upload this to my YouTube channel, and you can watch it on YouTube as well, Resolve to Live Forward. I also want to thank you if you like it, if you would subscribe to it, and if you would comment and offer me feedback in any way, form, shape, or fashion. Before I move on with the essence of episode 17, which is simply entitled The Courage to Begin Again, please do me a favor and write down my email address: John, John, Morrow, Morrow, coaching @gmail.com. John Morrow Coaching @gmail.com. devastation.com. You may find a website out there, but it's a website that I am not yet fully engaged with. There's still a lot of things I have to learn. At my age, I'm willing, I just don't catch on all that quick. I also know that this podcast is definitely not for everybody, but that's the beauty of podcasting. Podcasting allows me to reach that individual, that group of individuals, that community, that tribe, that family that know what it feels like to be devastated. And there is a tremendous amount of heartbreak and grief associated with it. And as I've said before, and I'll say it again, grieving is not just associated with physical death. Death manifests itself in many, many ways in our lives. Have you ever noticed how often life will ask us to start over, begin again? Wow. Begin again, start over, not because we wanted to, not because we planned to, but because our lives have changed. Now, sometimes the loss is someone that we have loved so desperately. From time to time, it's a loss of a job. Could be retirement, by the way. It was a choice. Could be a diagnosis. I've had a diagnosis and wondered in my mind if my life might end. But more importantly, I knew that from this point forward, my life was going to be changed. And it's true. I had my diagnosis moment. I had that crisis moment in every kind of intervention you could imagine. Disappointments, obviously, broken hearts, hurt feelings, estrangements, broken relationships. I had a house fire in 1990. I remember what that did. It didn't burn the house down, but it was devastating because of what it destroyed within the house. There are even times when a dream that we had clutched onto with such intensity simply slips away. The opportunity is gone. Beginning again isn't reserved just for people who are youthful. In fact, I believe those of us with a lot more years on our chassis having having or being able to look back and see that there's a whole lot more that we've lived than what we've got left. We often see that we have the greatest capacity to begin again because we've already survived so many things that we thought back in the day would actually destroy us and make it impossible to go forward. There's that period at the end of the sentence. But another paragraph. And what does a paragraph start with? A sentence. And what does a sentence start with? One word. And as I said in the last episode, how does going forward look? It starts with one step. Now, I'm going to bring up a subject. Some of you grow very, very tired of this. After my wife died over 7 years ago, I was looking for a new beginning. Not at first, but I started looking for a new beginning. I simply wanted my old life back. What? That's not new. You're right. That's not new in the strictest sense. Some would even say, well, wait a minute, you wanted what you had before she passed away, because when she passed away, it was almost 46 years that you'd been married and you'd been in love with each other and the best of friends for over 46 years. That was at that particular time in your life. Am I correct? 2/3 of your life, John? All right. Put yourself in those shoes in any particular situation that you want to talk about, young or old, or in the midlife situation. That was a cathartic milestone moment. So, yeah, I wanted it back. I wanted it back. But at the same time, I was still alive. And that thing that was in my mind was, how do you move forward from here? So, how does that look? Hmm. Life doesn't offer reverse. Life only can be lived moving forward. It doesn't mean that you forget the past. You can't forget the past. But it does mean that you can carry that love and the beauty of those memories. And if you frame it properly, those memories are something that you cherish. You just carry everything differently because it's the love that lets you carry it forward. And it's the beauty of the memories that lets you carry it forward. And it's the memories and the beauty of those memories that you bring to light that hopefully will motivate you moving forward to make a difference. It becomes a fuel instead of an anchor. It becomes something that helps us start our engine every morning. It gets back to that resilience factor where you pull the covers off of you, you rise up, you sit on the edge of the bed, you put your feet on the floor, you then stand up and you take the first step in what is a new day, both planned and all the unexpected that you will engage. And you begin the process of living forward. One of the greatest myths we believe is that beginning again means starting all over again from scratch. And that's not true. We have a program in Toastmasters International called the Pathways Educational Experience. It's an online curriculum, totally digital, and it's comprised of 6 specific educational communications and leadership objectives. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but I will tell you that the most popular of those paths is the one that involves presentation mastery. And in presentation mastery, a beginning speaker will have a curriculum that has a foundational first level. I call it building block number 1. And in building block number 1, fundamentals of public speaking are taught, including fundamentals of effective listening and the receiving of good feedback with ideas that will help you to build and grow as a communicator, with each speech being better than the last. Quick point, no such thing as a perfect speech. Only a great speech and only the opportunity to be continually greater. Speech is always an effort, it's practice, and it's a teaching opportunity. But one of the things about the Pathways educational experience is that when you complete the path, you're not done. It's not a one and done situation. Interestingly enough, there are 5 other paths that have more specialized training in them. But here's the one constant. That first building block, that level 1, you repeat it. Well, why are you repeating it? 2 reasons. Reason number 1, it's always good to go back to the basics. That's a very simple statement, but it makes complete sense. But the second reason is that you now know more than you did when you first started, but you're now going to go into those foundational blocks as a better equipped and more competent communicator and leader. And what you're going to produce are going to be the building blocks of how you're going to take this next communications and leadership learning path and build it into something that defines you even more as a communicator, as a speaker, as a leader, and as a human being. And that's the way it is with life. When a particular aspect of your life comes to a complete and total end, it's over, it's done. My wife is gone. She's been gone now for over 7 years. But I'm not starting from scratch. And you're not either. You're starting with that experience. You're starting with that acquired wisdom, understanding that are factored into that situation. You're also starting with the scars that serve not just as reminders, painful as that may feel, but they are also your teachers. They have equipped you. They have made you who you are today. And are you willing to accept the fact that the version of you that you have today is a far better version of you than it was before the experience? You're starting from a much deeper place, a deep appreciation for the things that truly matter. Now, think about that for a moment, please, because I do think about that. The person that you are today has survived every difficult day that you have ever faced, no matter what your age is, how long you've lived, or how short you have lived. You have survived things and you're still here. So think about some of the things that you have done in the course of your life. You may have cried, and I know. Um, if I'm being honest, I think there are times where every day I am near to tears. It just depends upon what's in front of me there. But you know what? That's a good thing. That doesn't mean that I'm a hot mess. It means that I really see much deeper and feel much deeper than I've ever felt before. I also ask a lot of questions and I still question. I've stumbled and fallen and made mistakes, and sometimes I've done stupid stuff. But here we are. Here all of us are, still standing, still breathing, still capable of making what happens today matter, not just in our lives, but matter in the lives of other people, and especially the people that we live for and love. Still standing. In this journey that I've been on, I've learned something about courage. Courage is not always loud. Courage can be very, very quiet. There's a book written by Coach Tony Dungy entitled Quiet Strength. And he was a man of quiet strength. As I said, courage is not always about being loud. Sometimes courage is simply, as I said earlier, getting out of bed. Courage is picking up the phone and making a call. And there are times whenever I have this to-do list and there are things that I know I should do, but I manage to talk myself out of them. It's a disappointment. Shame on me for that. And I don't mean to use that as negative self-talk. Courage sometimes is walking into church on a day when you just feel, I'd rather not go to church, but I'm going. Courage is seeing a stranger in a store or someplace and actually nodding with a smile. Courage is sometimes sitting down and writing your feelings in the form of a paragraph or a sentence on a journal. Courage is going for a walk with no other reason than just to take a walk. Courage is even stopping, and in whatever form, shape, or fashion you do it, saying a prayer. And it's interesting too, because every prayer I pray sincerely. I pray with intention. But there are some prayers that have been written that are so powerful, it's good to quote those prayers. And you say them not from a place of doing them by memory. You say them from a place because the prayer speaks something deep from you and expresses something you want to express. Beginning again often looks remarkably ordinary and very simple. And again, one step, not multiple steps, simply just one step. And because it looks remarkably ordinary, that's fine. It's okay. Progress is not measured by the dramatic moments, although there are dramatic moments where we make that kind of progress, like standing on a TEDx stage. That was a milestone moment in my life. But rather, progress is measured by faithful moments, by the commitment to follow through, by the determination to do what you said you were going to do. And it's back to that phrase that I always use. Everything about taking a step or making a move or having a decision is about intentionality. It's one intentional moment at a time. That's why I believe so deeply in the concept of living forward and why I talk about it in this podcast. It's not because our journey is easy. No journey is easy. And frankly, if it was easy, what's the purpose of having the journey? It's because anything that we do in life, if we take the first step, then we know it's possible to complete the task and move forward. There is purpose with your name on it. Everything that you do every day should have your name on it, but it should not have your name on it for the recognition, but rather for the accomplishment, for yourself, for the self-actualization of the person that you were designed divinely to be. I said it. I do believe in a divine design. I think we all have a calling, and we need to find that calling, and I think we need to commit to it. There are still people who will need what you do, what you've done, how you've done it, your wisdom, your experience, your knowledge, your giftedness, your smiles. There are conversations that still need to be had with other people. There are your grandchildren, like my two granddaughters, who need to hear the stories of life, and particularly the stories of their late grandmother, who they never got to meet. But we have a world of photographs of this incredibly beautiful woman. And you have the same kind of people in your life that have meaning to you, that need your stories. You have friends who need your encouragement. You have neighbors who need you to simply be kind. It's as simple sometimes as walking out to your mailbox and turning to the left and noticing that your neighbor just two houses down is at the mailbox, and you make eye contact and you simply wave at each other and smile. Can you even begin to realize there's actually something incredibly valuable in that? The world is full of critics. I can watch YouTube, and I like YouTube, and I have learned to analyze YouTube, and I've also learned to spot the authentic versus the genuinely inauthentic in YouTube. And there's plenty of people who are just getting clicks. They're baiting you with clicks. But the truth of the matter is, they have nothing of significant value to offer. They are manic complainers. But if I watch them, I have learned to spot them. And as I said, the world is full of critics. You get sick of it after a while. I know I do. There is something that there is in great shortage. I know there's concerns about water shortages and good breathable air and food supplies and shortages of energy resources and shortages of income for people to be able to make ends meet. But you know what one of the most endangered resources are on planet Earth? Encouragers, people that simply have something positive to say and to give to the world. And that brings me to what I'm going to do as far as asking you at this time. Here's a question that I want you to ponder, and I know that I'm pondering it. What new beginning is waiting for my yes? What new beginning is waiting for my yes? I'll do it. Maybe it's reading another chapter. Maybe it's volunteering. Maybe it's extending forgiveness, even if the other person is not willing to offer forgiveness. Or maybe you did do wrong and you want to seek to ask for forgiveness and to make restitution. Now, there's a word. Maybe it's picking up the telephone and making that important phone call. Or maybe it's finally believing that your best contributions in life haven't happened yet. Wow, there's more. You haven't given your best. You're not done. If you're still here, there's opportunity to do even more. I turned 76 back in June. Wow. People sometimes ask me if I think about the idea of slowing down. They look at me a lot of times when I tell them I'm 76, and in their mindset, in their particular view and objective, they don't look at me and see me as 76. They think, no, that you don't look 76. Actually, my answer to the question, have you ever thought about slowing down, is very simple. I'm thinking more about the significance than the speed. Let me repeat that. I'm thinking more about the significance of my life than the speed that I'm traveling. I might be slowing down, but slowing down isn't mean that I'm wearing out. Slowing down means I'm taking my time to take more in. Do you ever find yourself in a hurry to get to a destination? It's point A to point B, and you're rush, 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 rush. And it's all about the destination. And have you ever found yourself once arriving at the destination, you're already thinking about the next destination. So you never really take in what's going on right there in front of you at that particular moment. That's not about how fast you got there. That's about how carefully you enjoyed the journey getting there. It's not about speed. It's about the content of the journey. The result is important. There is an end in mind, but the journey needs to be experienced because the journey is essential to successfully accomplishing the end in mind. Comfort. No, life is not comfortable. Purpose. Not comfortable, but worth it. So you see, it's more about purpose than comfort. It's more about the impact that you make than the age that you have lived. Because as long as God gives me another sunrise like today's, I still have another opportunity to practice what I do based upon the very title of this podcast, Living Forward. All right, folks. I've been droning on and on. Thank you for those that have been hanging in there with me, but it's time to wrap up. I'm going to leave you with some thoughts. Here's one that I wrote down. I want to read it. You do not have to become a different person. Be true to yourself. What you simply have to do is give today's version of yourself permission to start again, to begin again, to live in the moment again, and to make the moment count more than ever. Remember, resolve means having a definite, firm plan of action. It means living out 7 best practices every day. Living resilience, engagement, service, organization, learning, vision, and enthusiasm. So make today count. Like I said in the last episode, one step at a time is all it takes. So take that one step, one simple step. Step by step, life is a cinch. Yard by yard, it's very hard. Offer a smile. Make eye contact and nod in a positive manner. Look for lessons. And when one is presented, do everything you can to learn as much from it. Find someone who needs you to encourage them and be an encouragement giver. And no matter what yesterday might have looked like, resolve to live forward. It's all about intentionality. It's all about getting down to the business of writing a new chapter. But a new chapter only occurs when you start with one word, one sentence, one paragraph, and you consistently do it again and again and again. Thank you for joining me today. This has been Resolve to Live Forward. I'm John Morrow, the host. You are listening to this on multiple podcast platforms, and those platforms are actually including Spotify and the Apple Store and the other podcast platforms that are there as well. But all of them are made possible through the podcast hosting services a buzzsprout. And for podcasters out there who are looking for a way to penetrate the market, I recommend you check out Buzzsprout. There are many, many podcast hosting platforms out there. I just happen to be a fan of Buzzsprout. Also, remember that the YouTube version of this video will be going up shortly, and you'll be able to watch it on my YouTube channel, Resolve to Live Forward, John Morrow. And I hope that you will check it out, because for those of you that are listening to the audio, when you see me, you'll understand, yep, I am exactly who I am. And by the way, orange is my brand color. So there's a lot of orange there. And I suppose I should give you this really, really bad pun and say, aren't you glad you joined me for today's podcast at Resolve to Live Forward? Having said that, it's time to wrap up this edition of Resolve to Live Forward. I hope you have a great weekend. We will be back here again a week from today, by the grace of God, on the 31st of August to launch the 18th episode in this series. That is a 6-month series. And I appreciate you joining me for every last bit of it. And be sure to catch the previous episodes as well, available on both podcast and YouTube as well. Time to go, folks. Have a great day. Have a great weekend. Have a great remainder of the month of July. And remember, every day when you get up, please, please, no matter what you do, always resolve to live forward. Goodbye for now.